Welcome back to another segment of Behind the Scenes of the Waltons. Today I'm talking about the episode The Separation. If you're enjoying these, please do hit like and subscribe, and you can hit that notification bell if you'd like to know when I'm going to post another one. Interesting note on this episode, The Separation, the story was by Ellen Corby, and then the teleplay was by Richard Carr and directed by Philip Leacock. Ellen was involved in the writing of, I think, a couple episodes. I'd have to check back as to which ones they were. But I think it's only appropriate that the storyline really focused on Grandma and Grandpa and her jealousy and how that impacts their relationship, and Grandpa just being done with that and feeling like he doesn't have to keep explaining his actions and that she should trust him after all these years. And her inability to just do that, as much as she loves him, that she finds herself with this compulsive need to know where he is and to worry about him and to feel jealous when she feels that he is spending time with particularly the Baldwins. All of these misunderstandings are brought about because the Waltons can't pay their electricity bill. So the electric company comes and shuts off the electricity. Olivia sends Grandpa down to Ike's to get candles. Along the way, he gets this idea. He knows that the Baldwins have some pipes that need to be fixed. He goes there and he proposes to fix them for what he knows is the cost of having the electricity put back on. So he says he will fix the pipes, and then could they go with him, or could he go into Charlottesville to pay this bill? So they get all excited and they're like, oh, we would love to go into Charlottesville. Can we come along with you? And so he does the work, and then he goes into Charlottesville, and they make however many stops they're going to make. And it all takes much longer than he thought it would. And then they stop at the soda shop, and he finds this toilet water that reminds him of Esther, and he buys that, and they all have a chocolate soda. So it takes some time before he gets back home or is on his way back home. And then in the meantime, Grandma is terribly worried because where did he get to? They send John Boy down to Ike's. Ike hasn't seen him, so nobody knows where he is, and they literally go out looking for him because it's now dark, and Grandma is terrified that he is off in a ditch somewhere on the side of the road, and she can't just relax and trust that he's fine and that he'll get home when he gets home. Another case where Will is theoretically driving, and yet, as I have mentioned, Will did not drive. So whenever we supposedly see him driving, he would not have actually been driving that vehicle, which means it was somehow a setup shot. It was a camera car. It was a process shot. It was something that was happening. And when you see the vehicle driving along, you do not actually see that it isn't Will driving. Often when we are in interior sets, as in the case of Mr. Harper's store, those tended to be done on the soundstage, but in this case it caught my attention that this seems to have been the actual location, like the exterior location. The store appears to be on Midwest Street, but I can tell that it actually they used the actual interior of that location. Sometimes there was enough space within some of those buildings, like the schoolhouse. We often shot that actually in the schoolhouse there on Midwest Street. But here, because through the windows you can see people walking, and you can actually see that gazebo that was part of Midwest Street that you saw when cars drove around there, or when John Boy was going to Boatwright University and he parked outside there. So that gazebo was a location that we saw quite often in episodes, not just of the Waltons, but other things that were shot at Warner Brothers. So in this case, I went, oh, that was probably an actual building where they could shoot. The tiff between Grandma and Grandpa escalates. When he comes back, she doesn't even let him explain. She's angry with him. He doesn't feel that he needs to explain then, so he gets in a huff, so he goes and he packs and he leaves. So just a real example of the lack of communication, that sometimes if we give each other the opportunity to speak, we can work our way through it. And as an audience, we're like, oh, just just explain what happened, or Grandma, why don't you listen? And even when John Boy knows or John knows, it's, Grandpa doesn't want them to tell her. He wants her to recognize that she has no reason to be jealous and that she should listen and let him explain, and that unless she apologizes, he's not coming back. I thought the scene was really cute here, where because the electricity's out and they're burning candles, they make shapes in the candles. I remember doing that at school and at other times when I was young, whether it was in front of a candle or in front of a light when it was dark, but it just made me smile to see them creating these little figures with their hands and fingers. John Boy goes to see Ike to pay for the candles and finds Grandpa sleeping on the pool table. Doesn't sound like a very comfortable place to be sleeping to me, but at least then they know where Grandpa is. Throughout the episode, Mary Ellen keeps asking Mom about this upcoming dance that she wants to know if they can go to. And Mom is like, I'll let you know. And Mary Ellen keeps ragging on her, going, well, could you let me know soon? When can we know? I need to know. I would have to iron my dress. And Grandma gives her some great advice at one point. She says, if I really wanted to get my mother to let me do something, I would do everything I could to help her, to find out what she needed, sort of butter her up in a sense, give her a reason to want to reward you in a sense, and have that dress all ready to go. So Mary Ellen does actually take that to heart and does all the ironing and gets her dress ready, and in hopes that she will get to go to this dance. When I saw this scene and the way I'm sitting there on the stairs, I went, oh, that's that still photo I have that somebody took of me on the set. And if it wasn't there, then it's interesting because clearly that was a position that I sat in. So I have this still picture that reflects that position on those stairs. When Grandma does find out the truth about Grandpa having gone to the Baldwins to fix the pipes, to be able to pay to have the electricity turned back on, she does own up to it and is embarrassed and says, there's no fool like an old fool. And I mean me, basically. So she does recognize that she has blown it out of proportion and has not given Zeb the opportunity to explain or to give him the benefit of the doubt. I thought it was a very sweet scene as John Boy drives Grandma to Ike's so that she can apologize. She asks John Boy's advice on if he were writing the scene in his book about Grandma going to apologize to Grandpa, how would he script it? And she tries to get his advice on how she might go and speak with him and how he might react. And she's hoping, she's hopeful that it's going to go well, but then he arrives and finds out that they find out Grandpa isn't there. And so now she's upset again. So all that work, all of that recognition that she was wrong goes right back out the window. So there you go, a little more conflict for the story before Grandma and Grandpa can resolve their differences. There's been talk about Fred Hansen, or for some reason they call him Oglethorpe or something like that, the caller for this dance that Mary Ellen wants to go to. And evidently it was someone that Grandma knew back in the day, and that he always wanted to dance with Grandma, but that she always saved this one dance, My Wild Irish Rose, for Grandpa. So when they decide they're going to go to the dance, and the idea starts popping in people's heads that perhaps if Grandpa had his own reason to be a little jealous, that perhaps that would give him a different perspective on Grandma being jealous. So everyone's going to go to the dance, and they make sure that Grandpa knows that Grandma's going, and that, Fred Oglethorpe is going to be there. So Grandpa decides that he is indeed going to go to this dance. And here we are at yet another dance. So we had a lot of dances and a lot of fun things like that, fun scene sequences during the course of the Waltons. So here we are at this barn dance, and everybody's dancing. I dance with John Boy, and Grandpa dances with Miss Emily, and then Grandma dances with Fred. But then the song comes on, My Wild Irish Rose, and first Grandpa is dancing with Miss Mamie, but then when he realizes that the song that's being played was their song, he turns Miss Mamie over to, I believe, John Boy, and he goes and asks Esther to dance. And so they have this special moment, and it helps draw them back together. And then we've got everybody, all the families out there dancing. Let's see, we've got Grandpa with Grandma, John's dancing with Olivia, which we don't always see that often, so that's a sweet there. Ben's dancing with Eric, and Jason is dancing with Mary Ellen, with me, and Jim, Bob, and Elizabeth are dancing. So the whole family's out there, we're all dancing, and it's a happy ending. That's what I have for you for this episode of Behind the Scenes of the Waltons about the separation. I'll be back with more Behind the Scenes of the Waltons and more Ask Judy. Thanks for watching.